I'm B. Singh, founder and director, NEXT IAS and MEDIG Group. You are watching Toppers Talk. UPSC Indian Forest Services Examination 2019 result is declared yesterday, and with me there are two top rankers, Mr. Lavish Ordia, who has secured All India Rank 2 in his first attempt. So Lavish, congratulations.
Thank you very much, sir.
And the second person with me is Mr. Vishal Khatri. He has secured All India Rank 5 in 2019 exam. So congratulations, Vikas. I would like to tell in detail, Lavish and Vishal both are from IIT Mumbai. This is something which is unique and which is matching in both. Lavish had his optionals mechanical engineering and forestry. His hometown is Udaipur, Rajasthan. He did BTech in 2015 and thereafter he got the placement from the college in Shell, which is oil and gas company. He worked for 3 years from 2015 to 2018 and thereafter he started preparing for the civil services and the forest services examination. He was enrolled in NEXT IAS interview guidance program as well as in the mains optional test series. His journey and the process of study and then how he cracked this examination with the top rank, which is All India Rank 2, we would like to know from him. So Lavish, I will come back to you. Then I'll give the introduction of Mr. Vishal. Vishal, as I told, secured All India Rank 5. It was his second attempt and in first interview, and he cracked with the rank 5. His optional were mathematics and forestry. Again, he is BTech from IIT Mumbai and it was civil engineering. He completed his graduation in 2013. He got the placement and worked for 1 year till 2014. Thereafter, he did a 1-year course in Young India Fellowship, which was a liberal art course in Ashoka University, Sonipat. From 2015 to 2018, he worked as a management consultant at Boston Consultancy Group for 3 years. Thereafter, in 2018 January, he decided to prepare for the civil services and the forest services examination, and then he continued his preparation. And from the NEXT IAS, he attended the interview program. So, Vishal and Lavish, first of all, welcome in the NEXT IAS studio. Now, I'll come because you people have done a lot of homework. You are, of course, I'll say from IIT and already you had certain level of your knowledge and your IQ level. But for common students who want to prepare as a fresher, what will be your suggestion how they should start?
Sir, specifically for forest services, I would advise the freshers to focus mainly on the prelims exam because that is the biggest barrier in forest services examination. Once you are past the prelims, the competition gets slightly easier and it can be prepared after the civil services mains in 2 months.
One thing which I see, Vishal, ki both of you started preparing in 2018
Right.
and 1 year of preparation, 1 year of exam cycle. You cleared in next attempt.
Yes, sir.
So, how much time you feel for a sincere student is needed to prepare for this?
Sir, I think as Lavish said, prelims is the major barrier for forest services.
Right.
If you have a good steady preparation of 8 to 10 hours a day for about 10 to 12 months, I think all the 3 stages can be cleared easily with a good rank.
So, how much the cutoff of the forest in prelims is more than the civil services cutoff?
So
Sir,
typically it is about 10 to 12 marks more than the civil services cutoff.
So, prelims is the main challenge and hurdle for this.
Yes, sir.
Right. If we see both the exams, civils and forest services, so how do we integrate these study? Can it be done parallel or one has to focus only for forest?
Sir, in my case, if I talk about, I focused only on the civil services till the mains of civil services exam. Since the general studies part is common for both of them, one of my optional also coincided. So that was also a simultaneous preparation.
Right.
And then after the mains, there is a gap of around 2 months. And I had only one optional, which is forestry to prepare. So that was a easy path.
I see common in both of you, both had the forestry.
Right,
Yes.
sir.
Forestry, I think most of these students, second optional, they go for the forestry.
Right.
Yes.
So, what is that thing which attracts mostly engineers, they go for forestry? Vishal?
Sir, I think a lot of forestry syllabus like forest laws, etc., are also covered in the civil services general studies part.
Right.
Secondly, sir, it's a technical subject, so engineers are able to adapt to it very easily, and it's not a very huge syllabus. The syllabus is very small. So
Okay.
it can be easily covered in 2 months.
So I think the one is syllabus, and second is the relevancy, and the third is the behavior of the nature of the subject.
Right.
And
Right.
Also, sir, the material is very easily consolidated form available.
Available.
So that.
Yeah, you wanted to say
yes, sir,
Lavish.
I wanted to say the same thing, that there is just one book of about 600 pages.
Manikandan.
And, yes, sir. And if you complete it, it's easy to go through in two, three times, and that's enough for the exam.
So I'll come back to you. Mechanical was your
Yes, sir.
first optional.
Yes, sir.
So you opted the same mechanical for civil services also?
Yes, sir.
So what was the reason for going for mechanical? Because normally students, they have impression that engineering subjects are very wide and comprehensive. They require a lot of efforts.
Sir, the reasons were, firstly, since I was good in my graduation, I had a good grade.
Background.
I had good grades. So I felt slightly comfortable with mechanical looking at the syllabus.
Great.
And secondly, when I started the preparation, I was feeling slightly afraid of the humanities subject, that would I be able to write those answers, those nice language answers, and my writing also I felt wasn't that good. So I felt technical is my forte and I should continue with that. And then in addition, my work experience also was slightly technical in nature.
Great. And you opted for mathematics instead of civil engineering. So math is your optional for civil services also?
Yes, sir, for both the exams.
So what attracted maths is better than civil?
Sir, one, I had a intimate interest in math since early childhood. Secondly, sir, I did a lot of courses in mathematics. Although my major was civil engineering, IITB had a lot of flexibility in terms of curriculum. So I did a lot of courses in mathematics. And thirdly, sir, it's a very certain optional. You either know the answer or you don't know the answer. Scientific.
Yes.
And once you get the answer correct, then you get almost full marks for it. So
Right.
nobody can deduct your
So a
marks.
lot of objectivity in this
Yes,
subject.
sir.
Right. And civil engineering syllabus as compared to the maths, do you see civil was more difficult for you?
When I entered the preparation phase, I evaluated civil engineering as well as economics against mathematics. And I thought that in terms of risk to reward ratio, mathematics was a better choice.
Okay. Now coming to the prelims, which is the main hurdle and challenge.
Yes, sir.
What would be the right approach to start for the prelims? So how the students would follow and proceed?
Sir, the first thing would be to study the basic textbooks.
Right.
And sir, my approach was to limit the resources
Right.
and repeat them over and over with the right balance of practice test, to develop the approach for giving the test.
Right. And Vishal, you would like to say anything in prelims preparation?
Sir, I think it's really important to figure out 3 or 4 subjects on which you should become really strong.
Right.
And then for others, which are a minor part of the syllabus, you can either skip them or do them very peripherally.
So which are the major subjects you will suggest?
So out of polity, environment, modern history and economics,
Right.
out of these these are basic subjects and they cover almost 75 to 80 questions every year in prelims.
Normally, students have mindset to start with the NCRTs. So, do you suggest NCRTs are really needed, or right away they can start from textbooks or some other source?
Sir, I think if you have a good background in terms of schooling and your graduation, most NCRTs like the polity NCRTs, modern history NCRT, etc., can be skipped.
Right.
There are some NCRTs which are really useful. For example, the 12th class biology NCRT, as well as the economics 11th class macroeconomics NCRT. Those are really helpful and questions often come directly from those. So those should definitely be done.
Right. Now, when the main stage comes from prelims to main,
Yes,
and
sir.
obviously the students who are cracking forest service, they also target civil services. So the target initially is civil services.
Yes, sir.
So how do you suggest to utilize those 3 to 3.5 months in the best and most efficient way for between the prelims and mains for the mains exam?
Sir, the student should not have forest services in mind when preparing for civil services and focus strictly on the syllabus of civil services.
Right.
That is preparing one of his optional very well till like June or so. And then after that, focus on the GS part.
Vishal, I'll ask one question. optional should be prepared before starting the GS of the prelims, or should be done parallel? What is your suggestion?
Sir, I think optional should definitely be prepared by the time you are appearing for prelims.
Okay.
You should be, if not completely prepared, at least 75 to 80% of it should be completely done before you write your prelims. And most of the time between after prelims and mains, between prelims and mains should be spent on answer writing and preparing your weak areas in optional. So that's just a booster. The basics should be there.
Right. And as you said, the answer writing. So Lavish, I'm asking, what can be done to improve the answer writing skills, and what you did?
Sir, what I did is I wrote 5 answers every day.
Okay.
And then I had a group in which we used to discuss the answers.
Right.
And then share each other's answers. And we get like 1 or 2 new ways of presenting the answer every day. And that's how it improved over a period of time.
Right. And nowadays we see the content is flooded in the different portals, and it is not less than an ocean. When you search on the internet, you have, if you type anything, you will get several links open. Yes. So how to restrict to what to study from where to study? Yeah. You have, Vishal, any idea?
So for every subject, there is a core text. For example, if you take polity, there's Lakshmikant. So that should be done very, very thoroughly, and that should be revised very often. Over and above that, when you find things which are missing in that text, you can refer to other sources, but those should not be the primary sources. They should be treated as secondary references, so that your preparation can be consolidated.
And for the current affairs and the latest happenings, which newspapers, magazines, or online portals you suggest?
Sir, I mostly followed the Hindu newspaper for reading, just to be aware. Right. But I never made notes out of it because I found it very time consuming.
Right.
So I used to follow one particular source for current affairs and stuck to it throughout.
And Vishal, you?
So I read both the Hindu as well as the Indian Express. Okay. Hindu was the primary newspaper which I read end to end in terms of the useful articles.
Right.
Over and above that, some items which were missing in the Hindu and appear in the Express, those can be referred, and the editorials can be read in the Express.
Great. So Hindu and Indian Express, right? One can be base, another can be additional, and both are equally good. I believe that some students they follow this and that. And how is the relevance of the current affairs magazines or any online portals is needed, or newspaper is sufficient?
Sir, I think especially for freshers who are not aware of the issues that are going around, it's good to refer to some source of current affairs because they also give the static part of that topic and the background, which makes it very easy to understand.
Right. And most of these students I have seen, they give a lot of emphasis on the test series and answer writing because that is something where you can judge your weaknesses. So what is your opinion and perception about the test series and how it is important?
Sir, it is important to practice because ultimately it's like if you just keep studying and do not do answer writing, you end up just writing nothing. So it's important to practice, but there should be a right balance of studies and practicing. If you just keep doing questions and learn nothing, then
that also is not going to
there's going to be no improvement.
I think writing test is more important for prelims as compared to, let's say, GS or your optional. If you do 2 sets of tests for mains, that should be enough. But for prelims, you need to do at least 20 to 30 tests so that your guessing power improves.
Yes. Because the test series gives you opportunity to judge your weak areas, to improve your weak areas, and to develop a strategy toward the final examination. So gradually you learn on these things. Right. And coming to the mains examination, because you have all the questions compulsory in civil services and so when all questions are compulsory, what is the main thing to focus on? The speed or accuracy, or you have to focus on how to limit your answer in a limited framework?
So the strategy I followed was firstly completing the entire question paper, like writing all the answers. So second was to address all the parts of the question. If a 10 marker has 2 parts, to not leave one part.
Right.
And sir, the third part was focusing on the content and the quality.
Right. So Vishal, you followed the same or anything different?
Sir, so I would typically look at a 20 question paper in terms of 3 parts. 6 to 7 questions you should write outstandingly well. You should have keywords, you should have data points, you should have diagrams, all of that. 6 to 7 questions can be average, just as everybody has written basis all the known knowledge. And 6 to 7 questions can be, even if you don't know them well, you should write something. So
Right.
completing the paper is very, very important.
Right.
And in these, in the last set of questions, quality is not really a focus. You should just write whatever comes to your mind.
Some people suggest that some quotes, some sayings, some important words are required to learn, which can be quoted in the answer in between. So, did you learn something, or you went just conceptually and applied those concepts?
Sir, I had a set of quotes specially for essay. This is really important for essay to have anecdotes, quotes, incidents, etc. so that you can start your essay well and it gives a very aesthetic impression of your writing.
Right.
In terms of GS, I think quotes are not so important. Data points and diagrams are really more important in GS.
Right. And after the mains, the final stage which comes for the interview, and definitely 30-40 days are only. And for forest services, this year time was very less. Immediately interview started. So what was the strategy before the interview, and do you went through all the content revision, or you focused on the current part?
Sir, I think the basic thing to understand about the interview is that it's not really a test of your knowledge. So you should not really focus too much on content.
Right.
You should, of course, be aware of basics of your subject. And there are a lot of sources you can refer to. For example, NEXT IAS had the classes on civil engineering, which I had completely forgotten because of 5-year gap. So such resources should be used judiciously. And the basic thing, as I said, is to understand that it's a test of personality. So you should be confident, you should be honest, and a sincerity towards public service should show in your attitude.
Lavish, how much you give the weightage of the DAF preparation? Because normally interview begins with the DAF.
Sir, I think it is very important to prepare DAF because you can say no to a question about current affairs that you haven't read. But you can't say no to a question about yourself.
Right.
So sir,
you are mandatory to answer. You can't say, I don't know what are my hobbies.
Yes, sir.
Clear. So there are some questions which are opinion based during the interview, and I think those are the differentiator questions from other students. How well you answer and defend things in the situation. Was there any area or questions which you would like to share with the students, which you felt during the interview it was my differentiator question?
I had a question by one of the members about water management in India. We are facing a huge water crisis. So he asked me what should be our approach towards solving the water crisis. So I thought I structured it very well and he really liked. I said that there are some demand side and supply side issues with respect to water. Right. And in supply side issues, we can divide supply into industrial supply, agricultural supply, and home-based supply, domestic supply. So all of these need different approaches. And in demand side, I focused on rainwater conservation, water harvesting, farm ponds, etc. So I thought he was really impressed with that particular answer.
And it happens sometimes one question out of the box if it is answered, and that creates a nest between you and the other students. So Lavish, would you like to share any question which you faced during the interview?
Yes, sir. One particular question that I was afraid could have spoiled my interview. I was asked whether Indians are indisciplined, and my spontaneous response to that was yes, ma'am. Indians have a very bad reputation of being indisciplined, which sends a very negative perception. But then her follow-up question was, then should we make military training compulsory for all the Indians to make them disciplined? And there I gave a very logical answer, like no, and then like reasons like funds and the facilities and others, which kind of I think made a good impression. And then also gave a suggestion that NCC could be rather a substitute or a solution for discipline.
Right. And because both of you are from engineering background and many engineers will be watching this video. So was there any discussion with respect to, as an engineer, why you want to go for the forest services, and any questions from your specific mechanical engineering part?
No, sir. Nothing from mechanical engineering.
They did not ask anything. So there was no need to defend. And in your case?
Sir, Dr. Soni asked me how I would use civil engineering as a forest officer.
Right.
So I answered that well. I thought.
And water conservation and that also was the part of the
in terms of
civil engineering.
structures, in terms of surveying, in terms of mensuration, I told him how civil engineers will have an advantage and can be an asset for the department.
Right. So case to case and panel to panel, these things vary. Some students, they get the questions from your engineering area. Some questions, like Lavish was lucky that there was no question. So luck or bad luck depends on how the question is being defended and answered. So this was the discussion on these things. And now finally, I would like to come, Lavish, what you would like to suggest to students to get motivated and to prepare, and anything which you want to share?
There are highs and lows during the preparation, but we all have some people around us who have faith in us, like our friends or family. So just keep talking to them and always focus on only the next step, which is maybe prelims or mains and interview, and not think about the entire exam. And that is the key, and be consistent during the entire journey.
Right. And Vishal, your opinion on it?
Sir, I think as Lavish said, consistency is really the key. Everybody can study 8 to 10 hours for a week or 2 weeks or a month. But when the low point hits, you have to understand that even on low days, you have to put in, if not 8 hours, then at least 5-6 hours, so that you don't get behind the curve. And then you can catch up. I think it would be great to have a peer group with which you can discuss your problems, any particular issues in subjects you are facing, etc. At the same time, it's also important to tap into the expertise of faculty. So all of us go to some coaching classes or the other, and the faculty really have a much more experience than the students. So it's important to discuss your issues with them as well, so that they can provide their inputs.
Right. So expert opinion of the toppers, because both of them are in top 5, the second ranker and the 5th ranker. And Indian Forest Services is very challenging, especially in the prelims stage, because the cutoff is higher than the civil services prelims cutoff, and that is by 10 to 12 marks, which is substantial. Again, all the good students are at mains stage, so the challenge remains again in mains and in interview. So at every stage of the exam, there is a hard work needed and a lot of efforts are needed. So this was the discussion with the toppers, and you are appearing in the civil services interview as well.
No, I'm not.
You are appearing, Lavish,
yes.
Right? So when is your interview?
So 25th March.
25th of March. So from NEXT IAS, I will wish you all the best, and I expect that here you are the second rank and there you get the first rank.
Thank you very much, sir.
So these are my best wishes. And before we wind up, I just have one sentence about the NEXT IAS. How was your experience during the preparation of interview in the NEXT IAS?
Sir, one particular thing about NEXT IAS is the quality of the study material that they are providing. I have relied completely on it for my optional studies and for my interview program. So I think more such material, even in GS, I would like to see.
Right.
That's a one-stop solution.
And Vishal, those firefighting type of the classes in interview, civil engineering, in 2 or 3 lectures to be done. So was it useful?
So, sir, you had conducted the civil engineering lecture. I thought it was very, very useful and very focused in terms of what to teach and how to teach it. I had also attended a class by faculty on Maharashtra, my home state. That also was very nicely done. It provided all the historical, physical, economical details.
Right.
So, because we had a short span of time, I thought it was a very good investment. Within 3 hours, I was thorough with Maharashtra.
Right, because it was a difficult challenge to compile the entire syllabus in small 3 to 4 lectures. But whatever could be done, we tried to do it. So thank you everyone. I hope that this discussion with the toppers will be useful to plan your preparation strategy for the Indian Civil Services and the Forest Services examination. And if you want any support from us, the NEXT IAS is your next destination. Do not hesitate. Thank you very much.